Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, Universal Mastery. Today I have a very interesting video that we're going to be going into, and I think it's going to be something that's really valuable to know a lot more about. Okay? What I'm going to be speaking about is I'm going to be speaking about some of the basic knowledge and basic understanding that it is that you really want to know when it comes to understanding your nervous system and how your nervous system's resonance is literally what is creating and attracting your current reality. This is actually a really fascinating subject that I think would do so many people so much value to go a lot more deeper into and to just spend some time really understanding the power of the nervous system, because there's so much, we could say, passive stuff that operates through the subconscious, meaning it's not stuff we're really even consciously aware of, and we're not necessarily controlling these things. These are things that are just a part of our body and a part of our unconscious, subconscious life experience that literally are responsible for creating most of our everyday life experience. So this is why understanding the nervous system is so powerful. And just having a general education to better, navigate your own inner process through understanding how your nervous system works. What are the three primary stages of the nervous system, and what does it mean when we're existing within one space within that nervous system state, and what can we expect from that? So once again, this is the type of education that can literally change someone's life if they're actually really studying this and listening to this to receive this information, and then potentially wanting to apply this to your everyday life and your everyday inner healing process. So if you're someone who wants to understand a little bit more about the nervous system and how it functions, how it operates, and how it's literally governing the exact life it is that you're currently living, then I would absolutely recommend that you stay tuned, and I will see you on the other side. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. So as we're talking about the nervous system, the first thing that I want to say is I want to go into a little bit of, we could say, the process of how energy, generally speaking, moves through the body. So this is the way that I like to look at it. So I like to almost look at it like a hierarchy from the source down to the physical plane, down to the manifested physical realm, so to speak. So energy travels first through spirit, okay? We could say that that's, in some ways, a lot of that is like astrological, potentially extraterrestrial, like that's the source outside of just planet Earth and what we understand with the five senses and things like that. So it first starts with spirit, and then from spirit, it becomes this energy that moves through the body. So then it enters into the nervous system. And then once it's in the nervous system, what then manifests is a sensation and an emotion. So we have an energy that's in motion that then produces a sensation that's behind it. So that would be taste, touch, smell, see, or hear. And then from that, now that affects our entire resonance, and that's going to govern what it is that we are in resonance for. So what it is that we're attracting into our lives, whether it's situations, circumstances, relationships, things in that nature. And it's also going to put us in resonance with what it is that we're focusing on and what we're taking action on, what we're actively creating in our lives. So once again, it starts as spirit, then it generally moves into the nervous system. then it's an emotion, energy and motion, then there's a sensation connected to the emotion, changes energetic resonance, which shifts our energy field, causes us to focus on different things in accordance to that frequency or to that resonance, and then causes us to be an attraction point to that frequency and to that resonance as well. And then when we're talking about different frequencies and we're talking about different, calibrations of energy, there's going to be lower energies, there's going to be higher energies. And when I say low and high, I'm not saying good and bad. I'm not saying right and wrong. I'm not saying, just and evil. It's just two different polarities. Similar to how a battery functions. You need two different charges, two different polarities to create power for a battery. We operate the same way as humans. We need a balance of both low energies and positive energies, higher energies. Now, I think the case for a lot of us is we tend to get stuck in the lower energetic spaces. So in other words, we tend to have an imbalance of more negative energy than we do positive. And a lot of the times, because of our trauma history, we end up grabbing onto and attaching unnecessarily to the negative charge, to these lower energetic frequencies. And then that's what causes us to create realities that then reflect that lower energetic vibration, which is not really the most fun way to live your life. It's not the most fun way to exist. Okay, that's when there's a lot of dysregulation going on. That's when there's, a lot of reiteration of past traumas that you've experienced. That's when you don't have financial freedom. That's when you don't have a sense of safety. That's when the environments you're living in, are reflecting a lot of chaos and things in that nature. Okay, so hopefully you can kind of follow what I'm saying. So this is just a little preface of understanding how energy moves through the body, basically from its source into the physical, that then moves through our nervous system, interacts with our nervous system, that then reflects in what we're creating and what we're attracting. Okay, so let's go ahead and just go into a basic understanding of the nervous system. Now, I'm going to be giving a much more in-depth, full breakdown of the nervous system on my Patreon on the specific course that I have that is called the Trauma Course. And this course is going to give you a step-by-step process of everything it is that you need to know and follow to really start regulating your nervous system and healing the trauma that's in your body while having the full-blown education of exactly what's going on in your system so that you can better navigate it. So if you're someone who's interested in taking your knowledge or taking your studies and practice to a deeper level, I would encourage you to check out the Patreon. That's the first link below, and you have to be at least tier number 2 or higher to gain access to that course. Okay, I'll leave that there. But in a nutshell, the nervous system has 3 primary states. We have a regulated state, and then we have 2 more so we could say dysregulated types of states. So I like to look at it from the lens of green, yellow, and red. And these are 3 different states that the nervous system bounces in between. The green state is where we want to be. The yellow state is, not the most fun state to be in, but it's a part of the natural human experience, and we go there. And then the red state is definitely a state that we don't really want to be. We don't want to spend too much time there. But once again, we're humans, and sometimes we go there too. Okay? So the goal is we always want to generally regulate ourselves to be back into that green state. So the 3 different states of the nervous system is we have ventral vagal, which is the green, which means regulation, which means there's more flow in the body. There's more presence. There's more calm. There's more confidence. There's more feeling acceptance within the nervous system to a degree of like loving yourself and just being okay with being who you are. There's more want and need for human interaction. Like there's an actual desire to connect with other people and to sort of express yourself in creative ways and just in your own authenticity. So in this regulated state, things are also regulating, in your environment as well, because what's going on in your system's resonance is what's also, once again, manifesting into your reality. And it's also putting you in a traction point for that. So you're in resonance for more regulation too. And this goes very deep. So when we're in a state of regulation, like that could literally mean we're in an energetic vibration or frequency, so to speak, where we could like pull up to a red light, and as soon as we get there, it turns green. And to a lot of people, that sounds woo-woo, and that sounds like, out of this world. Like, what do you mean? How do you predict that? You can't predict that. But what I'm saying is that these things operate in the deeper subconscious and unconscious, which means there's a higher, we could almost say like a higher intelligence or a higher intellect inside of you that you're probably not even aware of, that is able to literally manifest things or create things or have things happen that are outside of your conscious control. And when there is regulation in the system, our bodies know when to put us in the right places at the right time. So once again, when you're experiencing more regulation in your system, the green light, the ventral vagal state, it's more likely that things are working out for you. So this is like when you go to the grocery store, someone opens the door for you. This is when you, once again, you pull up to a red light and it just suddenly turns green. This is when you just start getting booked with a whole bunch of more clients out of nowhere, and you don't even understand why. You didn't even do a promotion. You didn't even try to do it. You're just in that frequency or in that resonance for that to happen. That type of stuff. Things just kind of work out more because it's regulation. Okay? So that's just an example. Then we have the yellow light, and this is sympathetic state of the nervous system. This is going to be more of the fight or the flight response. So this is when we start to enter into survival stress, and when there is a threat to our perceived safety, we often are going to need to fight or we're going to need to flight. And that's a very natural, it's a very human, organic response. And from that space, it's important for us to honor that energy inside of the system. But unfortunately, a lot of people, once again, because of their trauma history, they can get stuck in survival stress. So people can get stuck in this sympathetic state of the nervous system. This is very common for a lot of people where, something triggers and it makes them, it triggers some form of unsafety. And now this person feels like they need to fight the threat away, which is okay. But then there's oftentimes a lot of things behind it that are going on in the body at an emotional level that keeps the person attached to being in this survival stress. So this could come into the form of any form of unhealthy coping mechanism that promotes nervous system sympathetic state, fight or flight state. So I'll give you a very common example. Coffee. Coffee is a great example of this. It's a little nervous system stimulant that can actually promote us being in more of a sympathetic response. And how many Americans drink coffee, or how many people drink coffee and they don't even understand that? A lot of people. It doesn't mean coffee is bad for everyone, but it's just, it's the culture we live in. Coffee is just like, hey, we have our coffee, but it actually really does promote being in that sympathetic state. Other forms of substance abuse, for example, unhealthy relationships. Every time you attach to a relationship that's not healthy, that sort of puts you in a state of consistent feeling unsafe. Most likely you're in a fight or a flight response most of the times because you're in a relationship with someone that triggers that in you, and there's not that sense of safety. And they're probably not the healthiest person, and you're probably not the healthiest person either. Okay? So that's another example of how that can happen. Sometimes belief systems and mindsets that we're holding on to, where sometimes we create stories. For example, I can't trust anyone. Everyone's out to get me. Everyone wants to take advantage of me because what happened to me in the past was really painful and it hurt. And I was abandoned, or I was betrayed, or I was neglected and I was abused. So now I'm carrying a mindset and a belief system where I view everyone as that same type of threat. When in reality, that's not true. There's many good people out there that would never abandon you and would never betray you. And if we're holding on to a belief system where we're feeling like that's what's always happening, we're through our own mental awareness, we are then holding ourselves in a survival state through the mind. We're holding ourselves into a sympathetic state, which actually means we're going to be perceiving things from that sympathetic state, and we're going to actually be in more attraction point for it. So the same way that I had mentioned that when you're in regulation, ventral vagal, things naturally regulate in the world around us. Well, when we move into survival stress, it's more likely that if we stay in survival stress and we're attached to it, based on the energetic resonance of the nervous system, we're going to attract more experiences where we're then going to have to fight or flight. So we can actually create enemies from this space, or we can create perceived enemies or perceived threats, and potential challenging situations that keep reiterating that survival stress. And that's just a natural part of nervous system resonance. Now, what I'm not saying is that when we go into this resonance, that it's a bad thing to be in survival stress because we attract more of it. No, it's natural to be authentic and go into your body and be with certain emotions that are naturally there when they're there. So what I mean by that is if you're in survival stress and your nervous system's in a sympathetic state, it's important to be authentic with that and to go there into fight or to flight in order to kind of process that energy through the system. And then that allows a natural re-regulation to occur, which means as long as you're not attaching to it through those other mechanisms that I was describing earlier, your nervous system will re-regulate and go back up to a ventral vagal state. So you'll go from yellow to green again. Okay? So that's why being authentic with what's really going on in the body and honoring, survival stress or honoring survival stress without attachment is important. Okay? But once again, most people are holding themselves and they're stuck in a survival stress. And that's creating lives where there's so much conflict, so much tension, so much rigidity, so much pressure, so much unsafety and perceived threat, when once again, reality is that's not always the case. There's a lot of beautiful people out there. There's a lot of beautiful situations out there. But when our nervous system is stuck in a state because we're holding ourselves there in some way, we're perceiving potentially beautiful things from a completely different lens. Because the way our nervous system is resonating, it's almost like we're seeing reality from that negative filter. And I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean in just a minute with that. So we have the sympathetic state for the yellow, fight or flight, and then we have the dorsal state. And this is going to be the red. So this is going to be more of a shutdown and a freeze nervous system state. And this is at the bottom of the totem pole here in regards to the polyvagal ladder. And in the dorsal state, this is where, once again, we've pretty much experienced our survival stress as much as we can, potentially to the point of completely burning out. So now we don't even know how to fight. We don't even know how to flight because we don't have the energy to do it. So now we're trying to conserve our energy by going into shutdown and freeze, a dorsal state. And when we're in dorsal state, obviously, we're not able to really fight for ourselves, and we're not able to fully neutralize the threat or get away from the threat in the way that we would like. So that's why we're shutting down, and that's why we're starting to freeze. And we're sort of, in some ways, we're preparing for death. That's basically what the body is doing. It's like preparing to die. But it's also trying to conserve its energy, to get more energy to then be able to fight or flight. So, obviously when we're in a shutdown, in a freeze state, that's a pretty uncomfortable state to be in. And once again, how all things work with energetic resonance, it's going to feel very unsafe when you're in that state. So if you're in more of a shutdown, freeze, dorsal nervous system state, you're going to be perceiving like reality from the lens of seeing threats pretty much everywhere. and you're going to be seeing a lot of the negative sides of life. Your perception and your focus is naturally going to be resonating with things that are more negative and things that are more, we could almost say, conflicting or dysregulated or challenging and potentially chaotic. And that's why when we're in that state, we want to recognize what's happening in our body so that we can start doing the things that we can do to re-regulate our system back up that polyvagal ladder into regulation again. So that moves into the next subject here is the polyvagal ladder theory, which basically means that when you are traveling up and down these different nervous system states from green, yellow to red, it's like a ladder. So you can't jump from let's say like red to green and from green to red. You have to go down the ladder. So you would have to go from green, yellow to red, and then from red to yellow to green if you want to re-regulate your system again. So I think the most common thing that a lot of us experience is I think most of us experience a consistent state of sympathetic nervous system, which is the survival stress. This is going to be fight or flight. And then throughout our day or throughout our life, we're experiencing maybe little bits of being regulated here and there. And then we experience more survival stress. And then sometimes that survival stress gets so intense that it then brings us down into shutdown and freeze, into dorsal. And then we might spend a couple days in dorsal after we've potentially burnt ourselves out. And then we find a way to get back up to survival stress and we enter back into fight or flight. And then maybe we stay there a little bit longer. And then maybe very periodically, very occasionally, we get a little bit of that regulation in the system. We feel good. And then we're going right back to survival stress. And then we burn out again. And then we enter back into dorsal. And it oftentimes can become a cycle of this. I would say a lot of us experience it in that type of way. And the reality is what we absolutely want is we want to spend as much time as possible in regulation, in the green light. And when we're really honoring our trauma healing process and we're working on creating a healthy foundation and shifting our lifestyle to support that, we absolutely can spend a good portion of our day and a good portion of our consistent life in regulation. So in other words, you can live most of your life from a regulated space. And that's an awesome thing to recognize when so many of us are so used to being in the yellow light and the red light most of the time. There are some of us out here that have never really experienced what real regulation is in many years. So there are some of you that are watching this that for the past 10 plus years, you've only been in survival stress and then shutting down and freezing after you've burnt out. And that's all you know. And you don't even remember what it's like to be regulated again. So you don't even remember what green light feels like. Okay. And that's where huge amounts of depression can sink in, huge amounts of like loneliness and like not understanding purpose to life and things in that nature, because you're forgetting what it feels like to feel good. And you're forgetting that you have access to that state. And that's the next piece that I want to say is that every single person operates through the polyvagal ladder theory, and every single person can get themselves to regulation. There's not a single person on this planet that can't experience a state of regulation. So once again, the question comes down to what is it that we need to do? What is it that we need to know to allow ourselves to get to that space so we can spend most of our life in that regulated state and live the life that we really want to live, okay? So that's the nature of our nervous system. And once again, with the course that I have on my Patreon, the trauma course, the entire course is designed to teach you how to regulate your nervous system with all the very practical things you really need to know and apply to be able to do that. So if any of you really want to take that education and that practice to that deeper level, I would encourage you to check that out. Okay, it's the first link below. But since we just covered the 3 different states of the nervous system, Now what I want to go into is, once again, the reality of what happens when we're in these different nervous system states. And then we'll wrap the video up there. So for example, when we're in a sympathetic state, so the fight or flight response, when we're in that state within our nervous systems, our nervous system resonance is in a fight or flight resonance. So basically what that means is there really is an energetic frequency or a vibrational energy that resonates with that sympathetic state in the nervous system. So I want you to think of a radio and how you tune the radio to different stations. And depending on what station you're on, you're going to get a different song, or you're going to get a different sound, a different vibration. That's literally how our nervous systems are. So when we're tuning it down to the sympathetic state, it comes with its own vibratory rate, its own energetic frequency that, once again, is like a filter over our own perception from that nervous system state. So if you're in sympathetic survival stress, you're going to be perceiving things in your everyday life from the lens of survival. And there's real science that proves that when we're in more of these yellow light, red light states within our nervous systems, we're literally more in attraction point to negative energy. So what that means is your focus, your natural awareness will actually see things from that lens or that filter of what state your nervous system is in. And this is a subconscious thing that is taking place in the body at a somatic level, and it's not something that you can even mentally control. So for example, what I mean by that is, let's say your nervous system's in sympathetic survival stress, but then you're mentally trying to tell yourself you're not, and you're like, everything's good, everything's positive, I'm focusing on good. Your body in this sense is what's really controlling your whole system. So if your nervous system is in sympathetic, that's what's going to govern everything else that's happening, even if you think you can mentally bypass that or you can mentally control that. So you could tell yourself as much as you want, everything's positive, everything's good, everything's good. But if your body is in that resonance, that's what's going to be producing your reality. So that's the type of person that's trying to see everything from the bright side, everything positively, everything's got to be happy and good, but they're still attracting a life experience that's very negative. How many of these types of people have you met in your life? And how many of these people, unfortunately, find themselves in different avenues of the spiritual community trying to bypass where their nervous system is actually at by using their mind and their beliefs and stories they're creating to do that, okay? So that's why it's really important to understand your nervous system and to be authentic and honest with where it is that you feel like you might be with your own resonance, so that you can go through the right process to then re-regulate it. So the key to, once again, re-regulating your nervous system, and also another educational piece to understand the polyvagal theory, is that your nervous system on default is always trying to get itself to regulation. So it's always trying to go into a ventral vagal state. So what that means is all we have to do is be authentic with where our nervous systems currently are and embrace those states while creating enough safety to allow the space for the nervous system to then naturally regulate itself back up. So once again, with the same example, if we're in survival stress, in order to allow ourselves to release the survival stress, contrary to what a lot of people might think, you have to actually be with the survival stress, meaning you have to be in the fight and in the flight response, and you have to honor it for where your system's at and feel through it without attachment, though, without the stories, without the unhealthy coping mechanisms, without the unhealthy relationships. So this is where boundaries come into play with those types of people. And then you have to do what you can to also create safety to nurture the process. Maybe you take care of your health a little bit better. Maybe you spend more time in environments that are more calming or more peaceful. Maybe you set up safety cues in your environments, like candles that you appreciate, things that smell good, pictures that make you feel good. These types of things helps you to create safety, and then through honoring that survival stress while creating the safety and shifting your lifestyle to support that, your nervous system will naturally upregulate back into a ventral vagal state. Okay? That's the key to understanding the nervous system. What you do in your mind and the stories that you tell yourself, or the beliefs that you're trying to attach to create a positive reality, is only one little sliver of what's actually creating your reality. 90% of your reality that you're currently living in is based on your body, your somatics, and what your nervous system is currently tuned into. So this is why when I say knowledge, oftentimes knowledge is some form of like a mental masturbation where people just want more knowledge. Give me more information, give me more data, because a lot of people think that their mind is literally what's creating 90% of their realities. When once again, what I'm here to help people understand is that the mind is really only creating 10%. It's the nervous system and your somatic experience and what's inside of your body that's governing most of what's unconscious and subconscious to you, which is your reality. So if we can use our mind to become aware of our bodies and then create that mind-body-spirit connection, now we have a much healthier system going on, and we can start being honest with our bodies and being more authentic with our nervous system states and our responses, and then doing the things that we can through our knowledge or through our education to support our bodies getting back to a state that works best for us, and then that will have an effect on our realities. Because it's super stressful when you think, when your life isn't going the way that you want it to, that you have to mentally solve everything and you have to mentally figure everything out. But what if I told you that you don't have to mentally figure anything out? You just need to do the basic, mundane, practical things that once again creates that safety and changes little aspects of your lifestyle to then regulate again, that then shifts and solves all your problems through the subconscious. And this is not like a quick, this is not like an overnight process. This does take time, because a lot of us have a lot of, trauma from our past, and our systems are sort of wired in ways where we are consistently making decisions that are not in our best interest. We're attaching to people and stories and beliefs that are keeping us stuck in that negative cycle. So it takes time to unwire those things and to unprogram those things, and then become aware of all the different parts of ourselves and really start a process of nurturing them. But it's absolutely possible. And that's the point that it is that I'm making here, is that when we address the body, the nervous system, and get back into regulation, most of the conflicts and the problems that you're currently dealing with in your life now will actually find a way to resolve themselves, because it's going to happen through your subconscious and through your unconscious. And it literally makes life so much easier and so much more understandable, rather than feeling like and always carrying a burden of thinking you got to solve everything, you got to fix everything, you got to figure everything out. Your body knows what it's doing. And that's why people will say, trust your intuition and trust your instincts. Because sometimes it's the most practical, mundane, basic things that we're overlooking, that when we actually address those things, they change our life the most. And I see it happen all the time with the different people that I work with, when it comes to my one-on-ones, when it comes to my mentorships, and I've seen how it literally happens in my own personal life. And it blew my mind when I became aware of this stuff. But when I started applying it, it really started manifesting. And it's really like tapping into the true magic of everyday life. And it's a really cool thing to notice. Okay. So with that being said, I think I definitely shared enough on the nervous system and how the nervous system functions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap it up there. If this was something that you felt like you gained value from, definitely hit the thumbs up button. That lets me know that you really received this and this was something that you appreciated. Okay? Now also drop down in the comment section and let me know specifically what you learned from this. Let me know what you actually did receive from this. I would like to know the specifics of that if you're willing to share that. And I would also like to know, what nervous system state do you currently feel like you're in? Do you feel like you're in the green, yellow, or red state at the moment? Okay. So with that, then go ahead and hit the notification bell and get notified whenever I'm posting, because clearly with content like this is literally life transforming content for the right people that are really ready to receive this and apply this. So if you want more of this, I would encourage you to hit the notification bell and also subscribe to the channel, because by subscribing, you're actually energetically connecting to what it is that I'm teaching at a deeper level too. So if you want to tap into that, I would encourage you to do so. Now, if you know someone that would gain value from this as well, and someone that needs to hear this, I would also encourage you to copy and paste the link and send it to that person. I would also encourage you, if you want to clip any aspects of this video and turn it into a short and put it on your social medias, please feel free to do that as well. Okay? Now, check out the Patreon. It's the first link below. I talked about it earlier in the video today. This is going to give you access to the exclusive content. Currently at the moment, there's about 1,750 active members of the Patreon, and it's only continuously growing on a daily basis. And I have a whole host of exclusive content covering from all different types of things. But I think one of the most important categories that I have is the trauma course. Step-by-step process of everything that you need to understand on an educational level that also gives you practical, things to do and things to apply with your awareness that will help you process your trauma and create the foundation to regulate your nervous system. So everything we talked about in today's video, that's the foundation. That's the process that you need to go through to allow these things to occur. And then, as I said, I'm going to have a video in the near future that goes into very much more depth into understanding the nervous system and the 3 different states and how they operate. And that's also going to be released in that collection section as well. So if that's something you're interested in, look into it. Tier number 3 is very unique. This is a ritual that I perform on the 29th of every single month because I have a background in the occult. So I know how to bring people through what is called an energetic transfer that can offer itself as an initiatory experience into some of the deeper layers of your own unconscious mind and working with repressed energies inside of your nervous system. So most of us have a lot of different parts of us that are more so protective parts of us that are sort of trying to keep us safe by keeping us away from deeper emotions in our body. But the emotions in our body are really the keys to us healing at a deeper core level. And we need to have access with them, or we need to have access to them, but we need to find a way to build a trust with these protective parts of us. So with this ritual, what it does is it actually calms down and it soothes some of these protective parts to give us more access point into these more vulnerable, deeper, repressed, exiled parts of ourself as well that are carrying a lot of these different emotions, sensations, and memories from the early childhood trauma. Now, once again, when you gain access to that, you can start accepting it, feeling through it, and that allows it to process. And eventually, through processing it, you can release it. That really changes your life. It changes your connection to yourself. And through resonance, it changes the world around you. So this is a ritual that I perform. The deadline to sign up for it is the day before the 29th, which is the 28th. If this is something that you want to participate in, absolutely consider it. Once again, it's at tier number 3 of the Patreon. Now in the 4th tier, this is also really unique. You're getting access to everything previously, but the only difference is you get direct access to me. So if you would like to work with me and get direct access through WhatsApp specifically, where I can send you voice messages, and when you ask me questions, I will directly respond to you, that is going to be your best bet to get support in that way. Okay. Now, all of that, once again, first link below. Check it out. Second link is where you can book a one-on-one call with me, or you can jump into mentorships. I have a 6-week mentorship and I have a 3-month mentorship which is absolutely the most popular mentorship that I do. I work with people from all different walks of life, literally from all over the world, like literally from where I'm at in America to the other side of the entire world. Okay? It's something I'm extremely passionate about. It's something that I feel like is absolutely a part of my purpose here. And there are, tons of things that are very, we could almost say nuanced, that are important to know, that sometimes can only happen in that deeper, connection through mentorship. So with that being said, if you're someone who wants to take your process to truly that deeper level, this is absolutely going to be the best bet for you. And I would be more than honored to be able to work with you. Okay? Currently right now, I have a full schedule of the people that I am working with, but if you decide you want to work with me, I can absolutely find room to fit you in. I will not have a problem with that. And if I ever did get to the point where there was no room whatsoever, then I would let you know and I would get you ready for when the next mentorship ends. You would be the next person that I work with. And we could, we'll definitely be able to communicate a lot more about that if that's something you want to go into. But right now, as I said, if you do book with me, I absolutely can fit you in. Okay, so once again, all of that is in that second link below. Look into it if you're interested. Okay, third link, this is the YouTube memberships. So this is basically going to be the entry point into the inner collective of Universal Mastery, the community that I have over here. And what we are is we are a group of like-minded people that are coming together, that are here to support each other through these deeper processes of working with our trauma, going through the healing process, but also understanding some of the more potentially taboo aspects of spirituality as well. So if you're someone that resonates with my content and you resonate with my community here, I would be so honored to have you in that inner part of the community where your name's going to appear as green. You're going to have little badges next to your name as well, so I can recognize you when you show up in the chats, when you show up in the live streams, when you're in the comment section. And it's just, overall, it's a super fun thing to see. So if that's something you resonate with, I would love to have you there. All of that is at the third link in the description below. All right, so with that being said, I appreciate all of you very much, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of the day or night, wherever you are, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.